Hello, I'm Adrian Ashton, and in this video segment, I'm going to be taking you through some of the nuts and bolts, the nitty-gritty of being a trustee. The bits of detail about paperwork, forms, what do you need to do when, how do I find this document, why do I need these things at all? Hopefully, you've already watched some of the other sections in this video series in induction and training, so this won't be completely unfamiliar to you. You've already either a trustee already as you're watching this, or you are a trustee to be going through as well. So hold tight. This is probably the nitty gritty bit, some of the details, and we'll try and work through it together. The nitty gritty, these sorts of come under, I think, these three main headings. Number one is your constitution, rules as a charity. Number two are all of the policies and procedures that exist. And number three is the legal checklist. What are we supposed to do when as a charity in terms of regulation and the Charity Commission and such like? Well, if you've already watched the True-False quiz as part of this series, you'll know just how important it is that you can get your hands on a copy of the charity's governing document, its constitution, articles, rules, whatever they may be referred to, because that sets out the extent of the charity's powers, what it can and can't do, how it works on a big picture scale. The question becomes, where do you find this? Where is it lurking? Well, if the charity has physical premises, there's probably a filing cabinet somewhere with a copy of it stuffed in a folder under the governance drawer. Alternatively, you can go onto the regulator's website, the Charity Commission, look up the charity on the Charity Commission, and it will give you summary information, key elements, key details about that governing document. Hopefully, though, in this kind of digital age of the 21st century, there's a shared folder somewhere, Microsoft OneDrive, Dropbox, Google folder, something like that, where there's a copy in there that you can easily access and have reference to. So that's number one, the nitty-gritty. Check that you know where your constitution is. The second bit of the nitty-gritty, and this is the one I'm afraid it does turn most people off. It's the kind of, we know we should do this, but do we really have to? And they're over there and we don't really understand them or know what's in them. Talking about policies. Usually there's a big folder of them, and there's a policy on safeguarding. There's a policy on recruitment. There's a policy on expenses. There's a policy on procurement. So it goes. Policies are really important. By law, as a charity, there are certain policies you have to have. For example, safeguarding, because charities exist to benefit the public. So the Charity Commission wants to know, how are you taking that responsibility and role seriously? How do you make sure it's working in the day-to-day practice? That's why there's a safeguarding policy. You go to the Charity Commission and go, this is how we've got it covered. Okay, you can trust us with this. And that, in the main, is the role of policies, to say, this is what the law says, this is what's important to us, and this in the middle is our community and what's important to our community and how things work for us. And the policy is the way that kind of links all of those things together. The policy is the way that you can be sure as a charity, as trustees, things are being done in the interest of compliance, legislation, but they're being done in a way that reflects the values of the charity and in a way which is appropriate to the way that the charity works internally and how it works with the wider community. Now, again, in terms of where those are at, probably in the similar place to the Constitution. Go track down the offices, find the filing cabinet, find the drawer or the ring binder folder on a shelf, and kind of immerse yourself in those. Alternatively, there should be hopefully a shared folder online somewhere that you can dip in and out of. And those policies, there should be a process to review those on an ongoing basis. So you don't have to kind of get to the end of the year and then have a week when some poor person is delegated to go make sure all of these are up to date. There should be a program that's constantly checking them as you go through. And then thirdly, the filing checklist. We've got this thing called the Charity Commission, and we probably have to do something with the tax office. So let's kind of dig into that in a bit more detail. What do the Charity Commission expect from you in terms of the nuts and bolts, the nitty-gritty of being a charity, and HMRC as well? As a charity, you're regulated by charity law. The Charity Commission exists to make sure that happens, make sure it happens openly and equitably, fairly, and in the interests of the general public that charities are set up to benefit. What they want to see, ultimately, is that Charity Commission are two things from you in the main. One is the trustee annual report. The trustee annual report is a summary. So looking back over the year, how have things worked as a charity? How well have we done at fundraising, generating cash? How well have we, and how have we approached spending that money? Crucially within this as well, the trustee annual report should detail what is it the charity's actually done in achieving its charitable objects and purposes. And more importantly, or just as importantly, how has that benefited the public? So the time was when historically charities said, charity law assumed that just because you are a charity, you would automatically be doing stuff that would benefit the public or a significant section of the local population and the community. Times have changed though, and legislation changes. And now there is that presumption of public benefit has been removed. So every year, you as a group of trustees, as part of your return to the Charity Commission, have to detail to the Commission, how has the charity done good in the community? And by doing good, we don't just mean, well, we opened up a nice cafe. Well, we put on some nice free training events. How has that benefited people? Now, this starts to become a slippery slope. And do we kind of track people's impact on their employment? Do we follow them up 6 months later to see how their lives have improved, what they've remembered? The good news is the Charity Commission take a proportional approach to this. If you're a small charity, just give the headline figures. If you are a large national charity with tens of millions of pounds coming in all the time, then the Commission would expect a lot more. That's fair, isn't it? So the Commission's, reasonable on those regards. So that's the trustee report. The other thing that the Commission want from you is something called the SORP. Okay? Now, the SORP, Statement of Recommended Practice, refers to the charity's accounts, and the income and expenditure, the balance sheet, cash flow, things like that. And again, we're covering the accounts in another video session, but part of that preparation and submitting of the accounts to the Charity Commission includes how far they should be checked. And again, there's a proportional system on this. As a small charity, you just need somebody who you think is a reasonable, reputable person in the community, a local shopkeeper, a business consultant, someone who's a teacher, to have a look and go, yeah, these seem reasonable, these seem fair, because you're a small charity. Gives that verification. Or if you become a bigger charity, again, we're in the kind of talking the millions of pounds, then it's almost a full forensic audit process by chartered auditors and accountants to have that validation process. So again, it's just about not trying to make your lives harder as a trustee. It's taking a proportional approach to say, how can the Commission, as the regulator, make sure that you as a charity are still doing the right thing by your community and the people who live within it? How do we make sure that from an outside perspective, things are still going right and the charity can still be trusted? Okay? It's that kind of renewal process. The second part is filing with HMRC, and you just got to do the accounts. Okay? That's pretty much it. Take the extracts from the accounts and pop them in. The question becomes, when do you got to do this? Well, as a charity, you have about 15 months after the year end to hold your AGM, according to most standard template governing documents, and then you file the Charity Commission shortly after that. But again, Charity Commission website will have details on there. If you look up your entry, when is it they are expecting the next return by? Okay, all the regulators are doing this. And again, good administration system and the secretary for the charity as well should be aware of those key filing dates and give you advance notice of when they're coming up so you can make sure everything is ready in good time. Now, this all sounds quite boring, really, doesn't it? Technical forms, we get the idea of policies now, but do we really have to pay attention to this? Or can't we just kind of, smile and wave and just quietly ignore it? Well, that's fine. That is your prerogative to do that. The idea of these sessions and laying out this information and hopefully helping you to appreciate the importance and relevance of them is to make sure you don't accidentally fall into a big hole. that you could have avoided. As we've clarified in some of the other sessions that we're doing in these video series, as the trustees, the buck stops with you, and ignorance is not a valid defense if something goes wrong. Your role as trustees is to make sure the charity is on top of everything. It's compliant with the legislation. That doesn't just mean compliant with the rules about fundraising or employment law. It also means it's compliant with the rules about being a charity, making sure the public benefit is happening, people are being appropriately and relevantly protected and supported, and that the paperwork is up to date as well. Filing is being done on time. Yeah? It comes back to you if there's a problem with that. There's another concern, of course, that says, well, hang on a minute, as a charity, we've got accountants, we've got a bookkeeper, we have an auditor that we pay to do this. So if it goes wrong, they can sort it out. Well, not really, I'm afraid, because under the way that the rules work, if you have accounts audited, if you pay a bookkeeper to do these things for you and they mess it up, they get your accounts wrong, they miss the filing date, it's your problem, not theirs. Accountants and auditors and bookkeepers do not have liability with the regulatory bodies. You can choose to kind of kick them, poke them with a stick if they make a mistake. But if they make a mistake, it's up to you as the trustees to find a way to fix it, because it lands on you, because the buck stops with you as trustees. Now, in all of this, you may be thinking, well, gosh, that sounds a bit heavyweight. I'm not really sure how, if we're paying someone, surely they should do the job properly. I'm afraid this is not always a fair world that we live in. These are simply the rules as they exist. And the idea of these series is just to help you be a bit more aware of what those rules are, why they're there, and how you, as new trustees, or maybe just coming through a refresher course, can navigate them. Make sure that you're on top of them all, and then you can carry on using more of your time and energy to leading the charity, working it through. So as I've mentioned, this is one of a series of videos in this theme. There's another one that we have about a quick true false quiz, about setting the scene, some of the practicalities and scenarios of being a trustee. And then we have another one as well that links in with this one, thinking about the charity's constitution. What's in it? What do we need to know? How do we understand the legalese that it's written in? In the meanwhile, though, for this one, which has been about some of the nuts and bolts, the nitty gritty, that paperwork, what are the key documents we need to know? Where do we find them? Hopefully there's been something in it that's encouraged you, because you've thought, I already know this. Yep, I've got that nailed. That gives you reassurance. And equally, there's been something that's made you pause and think, okay, I understand that a bit better now. Maybe I need to go off and ask a bit more question, have a think about that. Ultimately, hopefully it's given you more confidence in your role as a trustee or a trustee to be. And it's given you a better set of references, words and tools and languages and touch points that you can have better, more productive conversations with your fellow trustees, with any staff that are employed, with the Charity Commission and other people around.